In this vast and mysterious world, there are the Confucian sects of moral cultivation, the Taoist paths to immortality, the Buddhist schools of enlightenment, the alien races of the demon clans, and the sorcerers with boundless magical might. A grand Xianxia realm filled with wonder, danger, and secrets awaits your discovery. Xu Qi'an, a modern-day police officer, suddenly finds himself transmigrated. When he opens his eyes, he's already a prisoner, and in just 3 days, he'll be exiled to the frontier. But he refuses to accept such a fate. Armed with the logic and forensic knowledge of the modern world, he steps into the perilous path of an imperial constable, unraveling chilling mysteries and exposing the hidden forces that manipulate this world of cultivation from the shadows. Clever, sarcastic, and at times even breaking the fourth wall to chat with himself and the reader, Xu Qi'an will lead you through an extraordinary journey where law meets magic, where every clue uncovers a deeper conspiracy, and where each step forward reveals a darker truth. A brilliant fusion of detective fiction and Xianxia fantasy. This story took the Chinese web novel scene by storm. If you enjoy sharp minds, thrilling plots, humor, and deep world building, this is the novel you don't want to miss. Chapter 1: Calamity in Chains. Prison. Jingqiao Prefecture. Great Feng Dynasty. Xu Qi'an awoke groggily, assaulted by the stench of damp rot and filth. His stomach churned, bile threatening to rise. Where's that smell coming from? Did that dumb mutt take a dump on the bed again? Judging by the intensity of it, please tell me it's not on my head. Back in his old life, Xu Qi'an had a dog, some crazy husky named Da Now, or Big Fool. 10 years of wandering the cold, desolate north left him lonely enough to get a dog. A man needs company, after all. Just to be clear, not that kind of company. He opened his eyes. The scene around him froze him in a confused daze. Stone walls. 3 small square windows the size of a rice bowl. He was lying on a ragged mat, stiff and cold as ice. Sunlight filtered through the window, casting a dusty beam across his chest. Where am I? He lay there quietly, stunned, mind fuzzy as he tried to grasp the situation. And then it hit him. He'd transmigrated. The memories surged like a tidal wave, forcing their way into his brain without warning, without mercy. They fused together quickly. Xu Qi'an, courtesy named Ning Yan, was a low-ranking constable working for the Changping County Yamen under the jurisdiction of Jingqiao Prefecture. Great Feng Dynasty. 2 taels of silver and 1 dan of rice per month. His father had died a common soldier, perishing in the Battle of Shanghai 19 years ago. His mother later succumbed to illness. At that part, Xu Qi'an felt a bit of relief. After all, anyone who's lost both parents tends to be a protagonist. I can't believe I got reincarnated only to end up a cop again, he muttered with a headache. In his past life, he graduated from police academy, landed a cushy government job, his parents' dream, not his. But he wasn't cut out to be some obedient public servant. He longed for freedom, for decadence, for the thrill of a reckless life. He resonated with a line from the journal of a poet he admired. So I quit without a care and went off to seek fortune at sea. But why was he in jail? As he slowly absorbed the memories, the grim truth unfolded. Xu Qi'an had been raised by his second uncle. Since his martial training cost hundreds of taels over the years, his aunt resented him deeply. When he reached the peak of the refining essence stage at age 18 and couldn't progress, he finally left the Xu household to live on his own. Thanks to connections from his uncle, he'd gotten an easy job as a Yamen constable. Life had been going all right until 3 days ago. His second uncle, Xu Pingzi, a 6th-rank officer of the Imperial Blade Guard, was escorting tax silver to the Ministry of Revenue. Along the way, disaster struck. All 150,000 taels of silver vanished. The court was shaken. The emperor flew into a rage and ordered Xu Pingzi to be executed in 5 days. His clan was implicated. Male relatives to be exiled to the frontier. Female kin to be sent to the Jiaofeng division, the state-run brothel. As the direct nephew of Xu Pingzi, Xu Qi'an had been dismissed from his post and thrown into the Jingqiao prison. 2 days. In just 2 more days, he would be shackled and carted off to the desolate borderlands to live out the rest of his life in slavery and torment. What kind of hell-level start is this? He shivered as a chill crawled up his spine. This world was under the rule of a feudal empire, no such thing as human rights. The frontier. Barren. Harsh. Deadly. Most exiles didn't live more than 10 years. Many didn't even make it to the border before dying of illness or accidents on the road. Xu Qi'an felt his scalp tingle from the dread. System. His voice echoed softly in the dark cell. Silence. System. Come on, System Daddy, show up already. Nothing. There was no system. Which meant, he had no cheat. No golden finger. No way out. In 2 days, he'd be on a prison convoy to the borderlands. With his body toughened by martial cultivation, he might survive the journey. But that wasn't a blessing. He'd become a human work mule, worked to death, rotting in some forgotten corner of the empire. How terrifying. How utterly terrifying. All his beautiful fantasies about transmigrating into a Xianxia world burst like soap bubbles. What remained was only dread. I need to think of something. I have to find a way to save myself. Pacing back and forth like a caged beast, he racked his brain. He was at the peak of the refining essence realm, his physique strong. But in this world, that was trash tier. Breaking out? Impossible. Ask the clan for help. Xu clan wasn't some great noble house. Their members were scattered, with no power. Besides, 15,000 taels were stolen. Who would dare plead for him now? According to Great Feng's law, one could atone through merit, have a capital sentence lifted if they performed a great service. Unless I find the missing silver. His eyes lit up like a drowning man spotting a reed. He graduated from police academy. He had textbook knowledge, logical reasoning skills, a sharp eye for investigation. He'd read countless famous cases. Maybe he could solve the case and redeem himself. But then, the spark in his eyes dimmed again. To solve a case, he'd need the files, the details of the incident, the timeline. Only then could he investigate. But he was locked up in prison. 2 days away from exile. No access. No time. No hope. He collapsed to the floor, defeated. Last night, he'd gotten blackout drunk at a bar. Woke up in prison. Probably died of alcohol poisoning. God hadn't given him this chance to live again. It was more like a cruel joke. In ancient times, exile was second only to execution in punishment severity. Sure, he'd been crushed by life in his old world, but it had still been an age of peace. If he could go back, he'd steal his parents' savings to buy a house. Work with his mom to ruin his dad's investment habits. Prevent him from getting swindled again. Then, the sound of chains echoed down the hallway. A key turned. Footsteps. A jailer brought a scholarly-looking man with pale features and tired eyes to the cell door. You get half a stick of incense, the jailer said, then bowed politely and walked off. The scholar turned to face him. He wore a light green robe, hair tied neatly, a jade hairpin pinned above calm, sharp eyes and thin lips. Memories stirred in Xu Qi'an's mind. Xu Erlang. Xu Tan Nian. The son of his second uncle. His younger cousin. Recently passed the provincial exams. Tan Nian looked at him calmly. The guards escorting you to the border accepted 300 taels from me. That's all we had left. You won't be mistreated on the road. And what about you? Xu Qi'an blurted out before he could stop himself. In the host's memories, the two cousins had never been close. The aunt's hatred ensured most of the Xu clan avoided him. Especially the younger generation, no one had ever treated him kindly. Tan Nian had even earned the nickname, sharp-tongued bastard. I've been stripped of my status, Tan Nian said indifferently. But my mentors at the White Deer Academy are sheltering me. I won't be exiled. Just take care of yourself. Once you reach the frontier, stay quiet. Don't stir up trouble. Live as long as you can. He had studied at the prestigious White Deer Academy. His exam success gave him status. So, even after Xu Pingji's disgrace, he wasn't jailed. But he was under house arrest, stuck in the capital, running around day and night. Xu Qi'an sighed. Tan Nian's situation wasn't better. Stripped of his rank, possibly branded with lowborn status. His descendants barred from ever taking exams. He'd never rise again. And soon, the women of their clan would be sent to the Jiaofeng division disgraced. How could a scholar like Tan Nian endure that? Maybe exile would be a better choice for him. Then Xu Qi'an's eyes widened. He lunged forward, grabbing the iron bars. Are you going to kill yourself? A flood of sorrow surged in his chest. Even though he didn't really know this guy. Tan Nian's expression didn't change. He brushed his sleeve aside. What's it to you? He paused, eyes shifting away, avoiding Xu Qi'an's gaze. His voice softened. Live, cousin. Just live. Then he turned and walked away. Wait. Xu Qi'an reached out through the bars, grabbing his sleeve. Tan Nian paused, looking back in silence. Can you get me the case files? Xu Qi'an asked, voice low but urgent. The files about the missing tax silver. Chapter 2. The Demon's Disturbance. Xu Tan Nian furrowed his brow. Why do you want this? I want to understand how the case unfolded, Xu Qi'an replied solemnly. Even if I die, I want to know the truth. I won't rest easy otherwise. If he had said outright that he wanted to solve the case, Xu Tan Nian would have thought he had lost his mind. So Xu Qi'an chose his words carefully. After all, the original Xu Qi'an had always been a stubborn and persistent man. Xu Tan Nian paused for a moment, then nodded. I've read the case files. I can tell you the details. These past few days, he'd run all over the city for the Xu family's sake. But the case was too serious, no one dared help. After exhausting every possible avenue, with nowhere left to turn, he tried a different approach. Recovering the missing tax silver. Using the Xu family's old connections. And after greasing the right palms with a few taels of silver, Xu Tan Nian managed to bribe a scribe in the Jingzhou prefecture office to copy the case records for him. But he lacked experience in handling criminal investigations, and in the end, could only give up in frustration. Xu Qi'an raised his hand, stopping him. Write it down. Telling it won't help. Every detail was buried in the written words. He needed to scrutinize them, to analyze every clue. If his mind had to focus on listening, it wouldn't be sharp enough to process the rest. In his previous life, Xu Qi'an's logical reasoning skills were unmatched. He stood out among his peers in university. In the past, Xu Tan Nian would have dismissed his older brother. But this might be their final farewell. And so, he granted his brother's last request with a quiet, "Wait here," before swiftly departing. As his footsteps faded down the hallway, Xu Qi'an leaned against the iron bars and slowly sank to the ground. Unease churned inside him. He wasn't sure he could turn things around. He said he wanted to solve the case, but really, it was pride. He just couldn't accept dying without trying. Of all the ways he could think to save himself, this was the only one with even a sliver of hope. I had to try, struggle one last time before the end, he muttered. In modern criminal investigation, examining the crime scene, analyzing surveillance footage, and performing autopsies were the three core pillars. But this tax silver case had no corpse. There were no surveillance systems in ancient times. And he was behind bars, unable to inspect the scene himself. Fortunately, the case files could at least partially reconstruct what happened. While absorbing the memories of the original Xu Qi'an, he forced himself to discard his negative emotions. Only with a clear, calm mind could he think critically and analyze the details. Live or die? It all depends on what comes next. A stick of incense's worth of time passed before Xu Tiannian returned in haste, handing him a piece of freshly written zan paper, the ink still wet. It's time. I have to go, he said softly. Take care, brother. Xu Qi'an didn't reply. His attention was fixed on the words inked on the paper. Pressed for time, Xu Tiannian had written in hurried cursive. If Xu Qi'an hadn't attended a few years of private school, he wouldn't have been able to read this chicken scratch mess. Guess studying does have its perks. If the original owner of this body had been illiterate, I'd be dead meat, Xu Qi'an mocked himself. The case of the missing tax silver. At the second quarter of the Mao hour, around 6:30 a.m., 3 days ago, Xu Bingji was transporting a shipment of tax silver to the capital. By the first quarter of the Chen hour, roughly 7:15 a.m., he reached Guangnan Street. As the convoy crossed a bridge, a sudden gust of strange wind blew through. The horses panicked and charged straight into the river. In an instant, an ear-splitting explosion rang out. A water column 6 zhang tall, around 60 feet, burst into the sky. Mist and foam blanketed the surroundings. Soldiers leapt into the water, searching desperately, but only recovered 1.215 taels of silver. The rest had vanished without a trace. Beyond the case narrative, there were also witness testimonies and statements from the guards who were escorting the silver. Amid the scribbled accounts, one line had been circled in bright cinnabar ink. Demonic interference. Demonic interference. Xu Qi'an's pupils contracted. His chest tightened. Back hall of Jingqiao Prefecture Office. After 3 days of exhausting investigation, the three primary officials in charge of the missing tax silver case gathered at last. The prefect of Jingqiao, Chen Han Guang, held a delicate blue and white porcelain teacup. He tapped the lid lightly against the rim, a deep frown etched on his face. He wore a rank 4 official's robe embroidered with cloud and wild goose patterns. With a heavy sigh, he said, "Only 2 days remain. His Majesty has decreed that the tax silver must be recovered before Xu Bingji is executed. Gentlemen, time is of the essence." The gentlemen he referred to were 2 very distinct individuals. One was a middle-aged man dressed in black uniform and cloak. His nose was sharp, his eye sockets slightly sunken, and his pupils a pale brown, clearly carrying the bloodline of southern barbarians. The other was a young woman in a flowing yellow dress, her oval face as beautiful as a painted portrait. Her skin was flawless, her eyes bright as stars. She held a piece of sugarcane in one hand, and at her waist hung a small deerskin pouch and an octagonal feng shui compass. Her embroidered white cloud shoes peeked from under her skirt, an ethereal, breathtaking sight. These 2 were external reinforcements brought in to assist with the case. The man's name was Li Yuxuan, a member of an organization that struck fear into the hearts of Da Feng officials, the Watchman. The Watchman specialized in surveillance, arrests, interrogations, and even military operations such as intelligence gathering and infiltrating enemy lines. They answered directly to the imperial household, not the 6 ministries, nor the military hierarchy. They were a dagger hanging over the heads of all bureaucrats. The girl in the yellow dress was from the astrological directorate, and not just any member, she was the direct disciple of the directorate's chief diviner. On Li Yuxuan's chest was embroidered a silver gong. When he noticed the sugarcane pulp the young woman had spat out littered beneath her feet, he frowned slightly. A flick of his wrist summoned a gust of wind that gathered the discarded pulp into a neat pile. He gave a small nod, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes before his expression turned stern once more. He addressed the prefect. This case is shrouded in fog and mist. I fear we may be pursuing the wrong direction. What makes you say that? Chen Hanguang frowned. Thus far, the investigation had revolved around the theory that some demon had stolen the silver. We're almost out of time, the prefect said grimly. We should be tracking the demon, not wasting time chasing wild thoughts. Recent years had emptied the national treasury. Natural disasters were frequent. The missing 150,000 taels of silver represented a full year's tax from an average county. No wonder His Majesty was furious. Damn it, the prefect muttered. We're broke, and someone steals what little we had left. Are they trying to drive me mad? This case had weighed on Chen Hanguang like a mountain. He hadn't slept or eaten well in days. Li Yuxuan didn't argue. Instead, he asked, any new findings from Xu Bingji? The prefect shook his head. Just a brute who keeps saying he's innocent. Doesn't even know how the silver vanished. The girl in yellow spoke softly. I examined his aura. He isn't lying. Both men nodded. The topic ended there. Xu Bingji was the primary suspect. Every connection and financial account linked to him had been thoroughly investigated. Combined with the directorate's divination arts, he had been cleared of suspicion. Of course, the silver was still gone. He had failed in his duty and would not escape execution. The atmosphere grew heavy. Only the yellow-clad girl remained unbothered, cheerfully munching on sugarcane. Just then, hurried footsteps echoed through the hall. A constable entered, holding a slim bamboo tube in one hand and a steaming meat bun in the other. He extended the bamboo tube, but the girl's eyes sparkled not for the tube, but for the bun. The constable quickly reversed the order. The girl took a huge bite of the bun before finally accepting the tube, pulling out a rolled-up paper and reading aloud. My people report no traces of demonic energy detected within 20 miles of the road or beneath the river. No unusual signs along the banks either. Bang! The tension finally exploded. Chen Hanguang slammed the table, face pale with fury. 150,000 taels of silver, where could it have gone? It had to come ashore. 3 days and still no clue. Damn it! What kind of demon dares to steal from Da Feng? I'll see it wiped from the face of this world. If the silver wasn't recovered, he'd bear the blame. The emperor wouldn't care about excuses. That's how officialdom worked. Climb inch by inch, fall in a single step. Li Yuxuan sighed and repeated, are we sure we're looking in the right direction? What if this wasn't the work of a demon? Chen Hanguang stared at him, drawing a deep breath, forcing down his rage. If not a demon, then where did that strange wind come from? How did the silver disappear into the river? And what caused that massive explosion, sending a water pillar 6 jong high and destroying both riverbanks? Chapter 3. Even the world of immortals demands deduction. No one had an answer to this question. Li Yuxuan said, why would a demon want to steal tax silver? The prefect of the capital remained silent, pondering. Demons act without reason. They do whatever they want. Trying to understand their motives is like asking for trouble. But the young girl in the yellow dress had a different take. Human flesh isn't all that tasty. Wait, give me a moment, I need to finish this bun first. She stuffed 2 large buns into her mouth, cheeks puffing like steamed bread. After gulping them down with a sip of tea, she finally resumed speaking, her tone oddly relaxed as she discussed the topic of eating humans. Demons act on whim. To them, silver might not be as tempting as fresh, juicy human meat. And even if they did want silver, stealing from somewhere else would be much easier than robbing tax silver on a major road in the capital. Such an act was far too risky. The prefect nodded. Makes sense. It's possible they're being manipulated by someone behind the scenes. Li Yuxuan narrowed his eyes. Then who sent the demon? Why target this shipment? Why 15,000 taels specifically? Think of it this way, someone behind the scenes needed a large sum of money. But they couldn't openly seize it. Or rather, they dared not plunder wealth so blatantly. The prefect speculated. So they targeted the tax silver? The girl in yellow murmured, her red lips twitching thoughtfully. The route of the tax transport was random, decided on the spot by Commander Xu Qi'an of the Imperial Blade Guard. But if the demon had already been lying in wait in the river, then there's a high chance of an inside mole, Li Yuxuan said, shooting a glance at the prefect. Shall we consult the Cloud Deer Academy and invite a Confucian scholar for psychological analysis? The girl in yellow sneered at him. Are you looking down on the chi-gazing technique of our sky observatory? I already told you the soldiers knew nothing. The train of thought abruptly ended, and silence fell among the trio. The air grew heavy. Li Yuxuan buried his head in the case files. The prefect sighed deeply, and the girl in yellow fiddled with a feng shui compass hanging at her waist. She reminded herself that before sunset, she needed to leave the capital prefecture and enter the palace to scrounge a meal from the eldest princess. The imperial chefs were the finest in all of Dafeng. Her name was Kai Wei, a guest official and special investigator with no official rank. Though she was one of the key figures in the investigation, she bore no real responsibility for the outcome. The prefect hesitated, then cautiously proposed, "This case is dragging, and we're running out of time. It's nerve-wracking. Lord Li, would you consider consulting Lord Wei?" The middle-aged man shot him a cold glance and snorted. "You scholars have your Xianxia. We night watchmen have our own methods. To be frank, this case is a trial from Lord Wei himself." The prefect offered a bitter smile. "If we don't crack this case, I fear the seat beneath me will be stripped away. The entire court is watching." They exchanged a heavy, silent look. Ellipsis. If this really is the work of demons, then I'm completely screwed, Xu Qi'an muttered, his face pale, feeling the cruel joke of fate deep in his bones. Demons really existed in this world. Since ancient times, they'd hunted and devoured humans in a deadly, mutual predation. In the 10,000 mountains of the southern border, the demon nation had long existed, the largest settlement of demons. 500 years ago, under the leadership of the Buddhist sect, the Western nations waged a crusade against the demon nation. After 60 grueling years, the demons were annihilated. In the annals of history, this war was known as the 60-year demon purge. Since then, the demon race had been in decline, while the Buddhist sect soared to power, ushering in a golden age of Dharma. To Xu Qi'an, drawing on memories from his previous life, it seemed humanity had finally won the battle for dominance atop the food chain. If the theft of the tax silver truly involved demons, then the only way to survive and to protect the Xu family was to retrieve the silver from them. But what could a broke, peak-tempering realm martial artist like him possibly do? Autumn had arrived. The air was damp and chilling, and Xu Qi'an was drenched in cold sweat. He was afraid. After fusing with the memories of this body's former owner, he realized his odds of escaping prison were non-existent. In a society ruled absolutely by imperial power, Individual rights were fragile at best. Life and death hung on a whim. He had once fantasized about transmigrating to ancient times, becoming a poet and living a glorious life. But reality had slapped him hard. He transmigrated, only to get buried by the times once more. No. That's just a theory. That's just speculation from the capital prefecture. I mustn't let their assumptions cloud my judgment. I have to think for myself, analyze it rationally. There's still hope. His overwhelming will to live brought clarity to his mind once again. His reasoning tightened, sharpened. Why would demons steal tax silver? Isn't human meat more appetizing? Even if they wanted money. Why go after the tax shipment? I heard female demons are all charming and enchanting. I wonder if there are cat girls or dog girls among them. Slap. Stop drifting off. Xu Qi'an slapped himself and barked. Deduce again. Deduction relied on elimination, listing each clue, then ruling them out one by one. Otherwise, the logic would be a tangled mess. There were two most glaring clues in this case. First, the mysterious gust of wind. Second, the tax silver fell into the river, followed by an explosion. All major cultivation systems other than martial arts had methods to manipulate wind. So, clue number 1 simply proved that a cultivator was involved but didn't narrow things down. His second uncle was a martial artist. That reduced his suspicion, though didn't eliminate the possibility of collusion. The explosion, however, was far more suspicious. High-level cultivators often caused explosions during battle, but there was no battle here. The explosion in the midst of a tax theft made no sense. Unless, it had to explode. Xu Qi'an muttered. Is there any cultivation profession where explosions are a necessity? He pondered but came up with nothing. Then, he realized he was falling into the same trap as the capital prefecture. Their initial assumption had been flawed. They saw the clues and leapt to, demons did it. Then never questioned it again. Xu Qi'an, despite his merged memories, leaned heavily on his modern world logic. He preferred combing through files, filtering out subtle details before drawing conclusions. If I can't figure it out from this angle, then I'll pivot. Let's suppose the thief wasn't a demon, but a human with a meticulous plan. In that case, there must be flaws. No crime is perfect. The principle of Locard's exchange tells us anyone committing a crime will always leave behind evidence, directly or indirectly. Evidence can be divided into two main types, though I can't remember the exact terms: human traces like fingerprints, footprints, blood, and tool marks like wagon tracks, cuts, punctures. The real clue might not be in those two obvious signs, but in the details. Based on the case files, Xu Qi'an reconstructed the scene of the crime in his mind. Adrenaline surged. His brain roared to life, processing data like a high-speed CPU. Images and facts coalesced in his consciousness. The full picture slowly emerged. Without realizing it, Xu Qi'an felt himself slipping into a different state. His soul rose above his mortal form, soared above buildings, and hovered in the skies over the capital. Time reversed. The eastern horizon began to glow with dawn. Xu Pingzi led a team of armored guards escorting the tax silver to the Ministry of Revenue. It was the second watch of the Hour of the Hare. They entered Guangdong Street. Then suddenly, a strange wind rose. The horses panicked and bolted into the river. Boom! The river exploded. Water blasted skyward. The explosion echoed in Xu Qi'an's heart. Reflexively, he kicked out, snapped back to reality. His eyes showed fatigue, but his face lit up with wild excitement. I got it! I got it! Ha ha ha! I solved the riddle. He laughed madly, slamming his fists against the iron bars. Guards! Guards! Somebody come here. The jailer on duty arrived with a torch, shouting, "What the hell are you screaming about? Sick of living." He slammed the bars to shut Xu Qi'an up. Xu Qi'an backed away, letting go of the bars to avoid losing a finger. His voice steady, he said, "I want to see the prefect." A prisoner wants to see the prefect. Look in a piss puddle and see if you.
Thanks for listening till the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter.